Welcome back, viewers. Saudi Arabia will reduce oil supply. It sends to the global economy, taking a unilateral step to prop up the sagging price of crude after two previous cuts to supply by major producing countries in the OPEC Plus alliance failed to push oil higher. Calling the reduction a lollipop, Saudi Energy Minister Abdulaziz bin Salman said at a news conference that we wanted the ice the cake. He said the cut could be extended and that the group will do whatever is necessary to bring stability to this market. The new cut would likely push up oil prices in the short term, but the impact after that would depend on whether Saudi Arabia decides to extend it, said George Leon, Senior Vice President of Oil Market Research. The move provides a price floor because the Saudis can play with the voluntary cut as much as they like, he said. The slump in oil prices has helped US drivers fill their tanks more cheaply and gave consumers worldwide some relief from inflation. Gas is not going to become cheaper, Leon said. If anything, it will become marginally more expensive. That the Saudis felt another cut was necessary underlines this uncertain outlook for demand for fuel in the months ahead. There are concerns about economic weakness in the US and Europe, while China's rebound from COVID-19 restrictions has been less robust than many had hoped. OPEC Plus announcing in October that it would slash 2 million barrels per day, angering US President Joe Biden by threatening higher gasoline prices a month before the midterm elections. All told, OPEC Plus has now dropped production on paper by 4.6 million barrels a day, but some countries can't produce their quotas, so the actual reduction is around 3.5 million barrels per day, or over 3% of global supply. The Saudis need sustained high oil revenue to fund ambitious development projects aimed at diversifying the country's economy. The International Monetary Fund estimates the kingdom needs $80.90 per barrel to meet its envisioned spending commitments, which includes the planned $500 billion futuristic desert city project called NEOM. The US recently announced oil purchases to replenish its strategic petroleum reserve, after Biden announced the largest release from the reserve in American history last year, in an indicator that US officials may be less worried about OPEC cuts than in months past. While oil producers like Saudi Arabia need revenue to fund their state budgets, they also have to take into account the impact of higher prices on oil-consuming countries. Oil prices that go too high can fuel inflation, sapping consumer purchasing power and pushing central banks like the US Federal Reserve towards further interest rate hikes that can slow economic growth. The Saudi production cut and any increase to oil prices could add to the profits that are helping Russia pay for its war against Ukraine. Russia has found new oil customers in India, China, and Turkey amid Western sanctions designed to limit Moscow's crucial energy incomes. Russia has found ways to evade the price cap through dark fleet tankers, which tamper with location data or transfer oil from ship to ship to disguise its origin, but those efforts add cost. Under the OPEC Plus deal, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said Moscow will extend its voluntary cut of 5 lakh barrels a day through next year, according to Russian state news agency. But Russia might not be following through on its promises. Moscow's total export of oil and refined products such as diesel fuel rose in April to a post-invasion high of 8.3 million barrels per day, the International Energy Agency said in its April oil market report. India is the third largest oil consumer and imports more than 80% of its total crude oil requirement. India imports roughly 70% of its crude from the OPEC members. On a decadal comparison, the imports have reduced drastically from 87% to 70% in 2021-22. However, OPEC still accounts for the majority of India's oil imports. The reduced production by OPEC Plus will have a negative impact on India. Some of the possible effects are highly imported inflation. The production cut would raise crude oil prices, increasing India's import bill and worsening the current account deficit by around 0.4% of GDP. This will also affect the retail prices of petrol and diesel, which are already at record highs across the country. Increased prices of petrol and diesel would further lead to rise in the price of domestic commodities as well. Lower economic growth. Higher oil prices will increase the cost of production and transportation for various sectors, affecting their profitability and competitiveness. This will also reduce the disposable income of consumers, affecting their demand for goods and services. Higher inflation and lower growth will also pose a challenge for monetary policy. In response to a question about the potential impact of Saudi Arabia's oil production cut on countries like India, stated Fatih Birol, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, told, India is a country that imports energy and oil. The majority of the oil consumed in India is imported. Such a move could result in an increase in India's oil import bill, posing a burden on the Indian economy and consumer. And that's all, folks. That was the bulletin in brief for you. Stay informed, stay connected.